What's up everybody, this is Chris and welcome to the Rio Grande Fleet. Today I got a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, something I've been very passionate about, but just with everything going on with Nats and everything, it's been a little difficult to make. But now that that's all over with, I finally got the time to talk to you guys about Whitebeard. So this is going to be a Whitebeard deck tech guide, primer, whatever you want to call it, just pretty much your one-stop for everything Whitebeard. For those of you who don't know, Whitebeard is my personal favorite deck to play in the game. Not only that, he's my favorite anime character. Ever since I got into One Piece, I was always just fascinated with the man known as Whitebeard, and I love everything about him. It's fun, it's totally my playstyle, and I've had the most success with the deck. It's treated me well. Whoops, you guys weren't supposed to see that. We like to be funny here at the fleet, but yeah, no, I've had the most success with Whitebeard. I also played it at Nats. I went 7-3. Not the best results, not what I was hoping for exactly, but I'm still happy with it. Still think it would have performed. It performed well, and I would have done it again. And most recently, at the time of recording, I also went X&2. I went 7-2 at the February 3rd Treasure Cup online, and good enough for 39th place. Secured the Kobe Treasure Cup promo, so pretty good, with pretty much the exact same list. I made one little change, I'll get into that in a little bit, but while we're on the topic of the Treasure Cup, I want to give a quick shout out to other fleet members who did well enough to make top 64. So first off is David Bolanos. He started off super hot, as you can see, couldn't quite get it done at the end. Super unfortunate, but still good enough for the top 64 Kobe, so congrats to him, and congrats to Mr. Eric Quintana, also went X3. I believe he was on Sakazuki. Bolanos was on Zoro. You know, it's good to still get the top 64 Kobe. You're always glad to plus wherever you can. And huge shout out to Mr. Leo Quiroga. Leo went X&2. He was X&1 up until the very last round. Fortunately lost. If he would have won, he almost would have surely been in top 8, gotten his Serial Shanks, his first online event. But I think he did really well. I'm super proud of him, and you definitely keep an eye out for his name. It's not going to be the last time you hear about him. So congrats to everybody on that. But back to the topic at hand, Whitebeard. It's a deck, like I said, I've done the best with, and I think I know more than the average person. Not to sound too confident, but I do think I know what I'm talking about with this list and with the leader. And I think it's a very viable option in OPO5 right now. I think just being the big boy that he is, a 6k stat line, 6 life, and just being in red, a color that's very not utilized at the moment right now, just because there's a lot of good options. There's so many good options in the meta right now, between purple, blue, red, and yellow. You know, there's just so many good, powerful cards that red often gets overlooked or forgotten. I know a lot of people were very surprised when I sat down in front of them, or when I turned on my webcam and they see I'm playing Whitebeard. They're just like, oh really? Or wow. I even had an opponent make a comment like, oh, like, good luck, you're gonna need it playing Whitebeard. And I mean, that's fair. It's definitely not the powerhouse it used to be, but I still firmly believe it has legs. I think it's very underrated, and I think it can definitely give some of the top decks in the meta a run for their money. Hey guys, so post-editing Chris here. Just wanted to make a quick disclaimer. Anytime, and this goes like forever and ever, if I ever make a claim or say something like, oh, I've had the most success with this deck, or I've done the best with this deck, I hope no one thinks or interprets that as I'm the best Whitebeard player, or I've had the most success, or anything like that. That's not what I mean. I realize that's kind of what it sounded like hearing this back. I just want to clarify. I mean, when I say that, I'm trying to say that out of all the decks I've played, I've done the best with Whitebeard, like compared to Katakuri or other decks. Whitebeard has treated me the best compared to other decks I've played, or I've placed the highest playing Whitebeard, you know, as opposed to playing something else. Just wanted to clear that up. Hope nothing gets communicated, misunderstood, but yeah, back to the video. So the way this video is going to work is I'm going to talk about my specific Whitebeard list, why I have the cards I have and why I don't have certain cards. I'm going to mention some other Whitebeard lists that have had success that are a little different than mine, and just why I'm still sticking to my version, why I still believe in it. And then I'm going to eventually talk about my matches from Nats and my matches from this past Treasure Cup. Just go over them briefly. I don't remember all of them entirely in their exact detail, but the ones that stood out, the ones that I think are worth mentioning and highlighting, I'll go over those. And yeah, hopefully you'll get a good idea of what the deck is about and why I still think it's a very, very viable option in OP05. So I settled on Whitebeard pretty early on into January, I think. Around the turn of the new year, I decided Whitebeard was going to be the deck I was going to play for Nats. And since then, I was just fiddling with numbers, you know, doing things and trying different things and seeing what worked, what didn't work. And this is ultimately the list I decided on for Nats. Well, actually, technically speaking, this is the list I decided on for Nats. 3 Otamas, 2 Makinos. After Nats, for the Treasure Cup, all I did was go down 1, win up 1. But the deck stayed the same, and I'll go over why I chose the numbers that I did. So, Otamas, like I said, I was on 3 initially, I went down to 2. You really only need to see this card once if you're going to play it. You know, obviously it's there because it's a 2K counter. It's one of the best 2K counters in the game. But its on plays also can be very relevant with things like Whitebeard and Marco, possibly even Nico Robin. But like I said, I think you only need to see this card once, like, to play it and make use of it. You're never really going to combo it like 2 or more of them. So that's why I went down to 2. I just don't think it's super necessary like it used to be. Makino, on the other hand, I'll go over this later on in the video when I go over my specific matches, but there was one match in particular where if I had a Makino in hand, I would have won a game that I ended up losing. And I've always been high on Makino. I really, really like it. It's won me games in the past. I let a few of my friends kind of convince me I didn't need more than 2, which is why I had 2 initially. But after losing that one game, I was like, you know what, I'm going back up to 3. It's just the potential it has can really, it can win you games. It literally wins you games sometimes. When you have as many 1-drops as you do, your opponents don't expect it. And even if they do, maybe they expect like 1, but very rarely do they expect 2 or 3. And it will happen where you have 2 or 3 in hand with a 1-drop, and it's the reason you win games sometimes. So that's why I'm on 3. And then we got 4 Searcher Namis, pretty self-explanatory. We run a lot of Straw Hats. Straw Hats are the most represented typing in the deck, and you just want to find them consistently, as well as potentially be a later threat in the game. You could always swing with it. I'll get into that a little later. Next up, 3 Izos. I went down to 3. I was at 4. And I also went down on the total number of Whitebeard pirates. I'll get into that a little bit. Mainly just because you only want to see, the main cards you want to see that are Whitebeard pirates are Ace and Whitebeard themselves. They're so essential in so many matchups, and that's why I'm on 3, just because it's like, you need to see these sometimes. I know there's some lists that don't run Whitebeards, and I think it's just a different playstyle, honestly. The way I play this deck, like, you need to see this guy. And if you're bottoming with Nami, or you just don't draw into them, that's why you have the Izo there, to try and consistently find 1 or 2 per game, in most cases. Then you got 2 Nico Robins. This is basically just there for Rebecca, the blocker that Sakazuki plays. It is just such a nuisance at time, and being able to get past it for 1 Dawn just lets you be so aggressive. It lets you get hits in when you really need to, and either get them to take a life or burn cards from their hand, or use their Borsellino blocker, or whatever the case may be. It is just so essential, and that's why I'm on 2 of them. Next up, 4 2K Sanjis. Just another 2K that's searchable off of Nami, but I do play this card from time to time in certain matchups, like Sakazuki, Red Purple Luffy, even Purple Luffy. I think this card is really great. Again, just as a 2K or just to be super aggressive and draw you an extra card. Next up for Jozu's, again another searchable 2K, this time off of Izo, and you just never know when its ability could come in handy. It's basically, in terms of its rush ability, it has the same stat line as Ace and Sanji, so it could just be like if you're going for game, a Jozu is essentially the same thing as an Ace and a Sanji in terms of his stat line. They represent the same amount of power and potential counter that your opponent's going to have to waste to survive or to counter out of a hit from it. And then I got 4 vanilla Luffys, the film Luffys. It's basically just here for the stat line. There is some matches where it's just you really want that 6k body on turn 2 going second. It's not the best as it used to be. I know I've seen other lists that play Blocker Marco over this, and I think Blocker Marco is just the worst it's ever been right now. I know in some instances it can be really, really good into maybe like some rogue matchups. It can really sure up the victory there, but into really the rest of the meta, and that is why I play this deck, to kind of combat the meta in that sense. I think you just rather have a 6k body more often than not than a potential blocker. You know, Sakazuki can get rid of Blocker Marco like it's nobody's business. Yellow can Thunderbolt it, Amaru it, and yeah, I just don't think it's as good as it used to be. And I really just found that having the 6k body to kind of pair with your leader, it can be really good, really brutal into matchups like Red Purple Luffy and NL, so that's why it's there. Next up, 3 5-drop Marcos. I was on 4, went down to 3. It's just really not what it used to be. Also, it's a nice sticky body against Sakazuki. It's really nice for that, but other than that, it's not the best. You don't really get to play it for full value. I think the only 2 times I really ever wanted is against Sakazuki to pop a Rebecca in the late game, or against Enel to get rid of like a Shirahoshi or a Shuda, so it doesn't get Katakuri'd back to their life later on in the game. Then we got 4 Rush Luffys. This card is just amazing. It's one of the best cards that Red has, period, since the beginning of the game. It's a nice stat line with Rush, and it has a crazy good ability. Right now there's just so much blockers going on. Yellow has Sanji Brule, black and blue Sakazuki have Porcelino, Sabo, Rebecca, all that nonsense. Purple has like so many, Queen, Law, Kid, and this thing just for 2 Dawn gets around all of it, and it's really, really nice. You need to be playing 4 of this. I think it's crazy when I see people run less than 4. I love this card. It's so good. It wins you games. It's a game changer. The next up, I got 3 Rush Sanjis from the starter deck 10. I've seen some people run like 2 of them, and to be honest, this card isn't all that. Really, the only reason I'm so high on this card, why I'm running 3, I was even considering 4 for a moment, but that's crazy. But the reason I'm on 3 is because against Sakazuki, if you go second, your ideal turn 3 play, if you're trying to be as optimal as possible on turn 3, 6 Dawn, is to swing with leader, play Luffy, this Luffy, and put a Dawn on him, swing for 7. That is your most efficient play. There's a huge problem with that though. As you pass turn to your opponent, who is now at 7 Dawn, if you went along with that line, all they have to do is swing with leader at you for 5, nothing happens, but they reduce your Luffy to a 4 cost, and then for 7 Dawn, super cleanly, they play their Borsalino, the 7-drop, and it just bottoms your Luffy for free, and they get an 8k body. That is gonna really, really bother you the rest of the game, because getting hit for magic number plus 2k on Whitebeard is very uncomfortable. You don't ever want to be in that position. So that is why whenever I'm in that situation, if I have the Sanji to play it, I'm always going to play the Sanji. Even if it doesn't have Rush, even if it's just going to be a 6k for 6 and I pass turn without even swinging for it, like that's going to be my play against Sakazuki, because it takes that one play away from them. They have to Great Eruption, swing with leader, or do something else, play Sudo, whatever. They got to do something else and then like Lucci it or Houndblaze it, which is fine. You want them to get all those cards out for this over just swinging and playing Borsellino to so efficiently get rid of your Luffy. So that's why I'm on 3, just to make sure I see them, because in that one scenario, you really want it. Next up, we got 3 Ace. This card is just so good, honestly. I think people forget how amazing this card is. It is amazing against yellow when they go Ohm Holy, start turning them sideways, and you just minus them, mow them down so easily. It's good against Sakazuki with their blockers. You minus on a Borsellino and they can't just block 2k anymore or block 1k, 6k attack. They either have to just chump block with it or take the damage or counter out of it. You know, no tricks about blocking with, because Borsellino essentially what it does is it being a 6k body allows them to just to block with it. It gives them a 1k pretty much. So when you swing for 6 with your leader, you block, and instead of wasting a 2k, they just have to waste their 1k. But Ace takes away that advantage, so they either have to just chump block with it, like if it was just a Rebecca, or they have to take that life or counter out of it the good old-fashioned way, you know. So you just taking those advantages away is really good, as well as putting pressure on them, being a 7k into their 5k. It's really nice, and then it being a 7 cost is also, it just makes it that much more harder for them to get rid of, you know, because they want to reduce your characters obviously and remove them as most efficiently as possible. So when you take that when you take those little advantages away, and you're making them waste more resources to bring that cost down, that's where you want to be against Sakazuki. And then lastly, for the boss monsters, we got 4 Edward Newgate, Ninebeard himself. Like I said, I mentioned there's some lists that have had some success with no Edward Newgates. They just go like hyper aggro, play a bunch of rush cards, and max out probably more on some of these events. And I think that's a viable strategy. You know, they've had success with it. I've seen some lists pop up, and you know, more power to them. But personally, I guess the way I like to play with this list, I just feel like Edward Newgate is so good. If you just play 2 of these back to back against yellow, against Sakazuki, like your chances of winning become significantly higher. If you played the early middle game well, and you just follow it up, and you ended up with 2 of these, or even 3. You're just almost unbeatable. You almost short the game entirely. It is so powerful. It's so strong. It demands like so much resources from Sakazuki to get rid of. It can combo well against yellow if they like trigger a Sanji. You just follow it up with an Otama, 2 on leader swing, clear the Sanji or something like that. It's just really nice. It can pop a Rebecca. It's just super nice. And I was on 3 initially, but it would feel really bad when you would play a Nami bottom 1 or 2, or you would play an Izo and like you really needed like a 2k counter or something, and you just had to pick it over that. So just going up to 4, maxing out on them, maxing the potential to see them in a game, I think it's too valuable. So that's why I'm on 4 of those. And then finally we get into the events of the deck. Obviously we're on 4 Rad Beams, just one of the best events from the beginning of the game. 1 Dawn, 4k, it's amazing, it's super good. And then it's little brother Guard Point, the little Tony there. I'm on 2 of those, it's kind of just like an extra 2 copies of Radical Beam. Does largely the same, but it's only 3k instead of 4k. And then lastly, Bad Manners Kit Course as it is printed, not Table Manner, but Bad Manners Kit Course, just a one of. I was on 2 of these back when I was playing Rush Zoro. I was playing Rush Zoro in an earlier version of this list, and when I was on these, just because I had so many no counters, I was on 2 of these. But since I'm off of this card and I only have 11 no counters characters. I went down to 1. It feels kind of bad when you have more than one of these in hand. Like, yeah, you can always pitch it to the other, but you would rather, you know, pitch this to like a dead card and pitch the other one to a dead card. You don't really want to be pitching them to each other. So being at 1 ensures that that never happens, you know. And yeah, so that's the list. So again, some cards that I'm not running, like I mentioned, Rush Zoro. I was on this card previously. I was on like 2 copies. I took them out because I hate having a less than 6k stat line on my attackers, just because it's so easy for your opponents to swing into it, you know. The big appeal about Whitebeard is that he's a 6k, you know. Your opponent has to dedicate Dawn to attack you, and when you play Zoro swing pass, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, now my leader can swing at your Zoro without Dawn commitment. You either let it die or get a card out. My Holy can get a swing in, get a card out or let it die. You know, my Kuzan can swing it in. My Porcelain, like all these things, just suddenly it's an easy target, and it costs cards out of your hand to defend, or you just let it die. And you might say, well, just let it die. Well, that was your whole turn. You know, you played a rush character, got us a flat attack in for 5, not even like a 6 or 7 or anything like that, unless you commit Dawn. And then it's just gonna die next turn. Like it doesn't feel the best to me. It is nice late game. It's a very efficient attacker, 3 for 5 with rush. It's got a vanilla stat line with rush. It's pretty nice. If you're going for game, you know, if it's a surprise rusher from hand at the end of the game. But again, the fact that all that coupled with that it's a no counter, I really love having as little to no no counter cards in my Whitebeard lists as possible. That's why I'm, you know, 4, 4, 3, 11. I try to keep the number. Even 11 feels like too much to me, but I do think these cards are just too important. That's why I have them at 4. And then the last reasoning why I don't have it is because if you go turn 1 Nami or Izo 1-drop, and then go turn 2, put 3 Dawn, swing for 5, it's like if you just played a Zoro, because you would have played on turn 2, you're going to go 3 Dawn, swing for 5 with Zoro. On turn 2, you're going to put 3 Dawn on your 1-drop, swing for 5 with your 1-drop. And it's like the same thing. It replaced itself, and it's ranked for 5, and you still have that card that you found off of it in hand. So like you're up a card essentially, and you still made the same attack. Like you accomplished the same thing while also being up a card, if that makes any sense. So that's why I decided to cut it entirely and just hope to have a 1-drop turn 1 and follow it up with a turn 2 swing with that 1-drop. Some other cards I'm not playing, like I already touched on it before, is the blocker Marco. It's a pretty good card, but like I said, it's just not what it used to be. There's just so many ways to get rid of it, and I just think being a 4 for 5, it not being the powerhouse that it used to be, I'd much rather have a vanilla Luffy for that stat line. And yeah, I mean, I totally this is the one card I think I would really like. I don't blame people for running it. I think when it's good, obviously. And even in the places where it's bad, like your opponent still has to deal with it in one way or another. You know, it's gonna take a Sudo Houndblaze, it's gonna take a Great Eruption Houndblaze, it's gonna take an Amaru. Like, it's still gonna get, like, your opponent still has to answer it. You have to make them have it. And if they do, well then, you know, whatever. But if they don't, all of a sudden this card becomes amazing. And so I don't blame people for running this card, but I think still I would much rather just have that 6k stat line, especially against like yellow decks. Even in Sagazuki, I ran this out against a Sagazuki one time and it stuck around for a few turns. And it's just an efficient stat line. It's a counter. It's searchable off of Nami. Yeah, that's why I'm on the vanilla Luffy instead of the Marco. Another card that I've seen a few people run, not lately, but I know in the past it was run, was Red Hawk. Let me find it. Gum Red Hawk. I think this card is nice. It's pretty good into like Rebecca. You can pop a Rebecca, you can pop brand news, you can pop brulees. It's pretty nice. My biggest gripe is that it's a 2K, or it's a 2 cost event. I don't like holding up too much Dawn when I pass, unless I really have to. Like, if I have to leave up 3 Radical Beams to survive, well, then I'm gonna do it, obviously. But I'm sure many of you are well aware, when you slam Whitebeard, it's a 9 cost, you hold up that 1 extra Dawn, and that's your Radical Beam, that's your guard point or whatever. And if you have Red Hawk in hand, well then you can't play Wyvern and hold up Red Hawk, you know. And that's just my biggest gripe with it, the fact that you can't do that. And there's gonna be situations where you just have to play Whitebeard and you have a Red Hawk in hand, and it's just gonna be useless, you know. And so even though it does have really good upside, its trigger is pretty amazing, honestly. I remember in OPO1 this trigger was brutal. But yeah, no, I would rather run another guard point or kick course before running the first Red Hawk. And then lastly, I know in the past I was really high on playing Purebeard. For those of you who don't know what that means, Purebeard is basically just Whitebeard Pirates Whitebeard. In other words, I wouldn't run all these extra little straw hats like Sanji, Robin. Granted, these are new cards, but I wouldn't run the Nami search. I would just max out on Ezos, and I would play Whitebeard Pirates. Can't type. Jeez, I can't type. Whitebeard Pirates, the event. I really like this card. I was on Purebeard when I won the Fort Worth Regional, and I really loved just how consistent that deck was, how consistently it found all its threats. This was, again, when Marco was a powerhouse. It was restricted and it was still a powerhouse. This Marco was a powerhouse. Whitebeard was restricted but still a powerhouse. I even ran, you know, Thatches. You know, that version of the deck was awesome in its time. Now, it's just not really viable with how powerful Blue-Black Sakazuki is. With how powerful Yellow has become, it's just not really viable anymore. So obviously I'm not running Purebeard anymore. And I know some people also run Strawbeard, which is, for if you don't know, is you don't run the Ezos, you probably don't run Jozu, you just run majority Straw Hats. You know, you do run a few Whitebeards here and there, but you don't run any Whitebeard Searchers, you just run Straw Hats, and you probably play like Brook, the 2K counter Brook over the Jozu, or the promo Luffy, the 2K counter over the Jozu. And I was on Strawberry for quite a while. I do think it's very consistent. I think it's very aggressive. In that version, they probably do run that Rush Zoro. Where is he? Here. They do run the Rush Zoro. But the thing is, like I said, I do think these 2 cards are just so important in some matchups, and I don't want to just rely on drawing them. You know, I don't want to hope, oh, I hope I draw my Whitebeard this turn or this game. I hope I draw my Ace this game. I think I need to have these Ezos in here to try and see them consistently. I need to see these cards. And because of that, that's why I'm playing the Ezos. And if you're playing Ezos, well, you gotta have 7 searchables isn't gonna cut it, you know, obviously. So that's why we run the 4 Jozus to make it 11, and then the 3 Marcos to make it 14. So that's why I'm on what we call hybrid beard, I guess, because like I said, I just need to find these cards, but at the same time, the Straw Hats are also just so they're so important to the core of the deck. The events are so important to this deck, so that's why I'm on hybrid beard, the mix between Strawbeard and Purebeard. I think it's the best right now, in my humble opinion. Like I mentioned, there are lists who don't even play Whitebeard, Ninebeard character. I've seen lists that play like events, like event beard is what I call it. I don't know what people are calling it, but you know, they play like jet pistol. They play the buggy searcher to find events, the one that searches for events, and that list looks pretty hot, honestly. It looks like a lot of fun. I haven't tested it out yet, so I can't really speak to how good it is, but like I said, I really do like this version of the deck. It's really fun. I think it's really powerful, and I think it's just well-rounded. I think it's well positioned to kind of just deal with just about anything in the format. So I already touched on some of the matches that I think have like a 50-50 with Whitebeard, like Sakazuki and Enel. That's the main reason for running this deck. I think if you're just the better player against those two decks, and then again, barring any crazy luck from your opponent, like Veggie triggers or anything like that, I think you should more often than not come out on top. Some matches that I do want to avoid, like actively just try to dodge, that are legitimately scary for this version of the deck. Bello Betty, believe it or not, Bello Betty is terrifying. They just sit back while you kill yourself with your leader ability, and then build up their board, play one or two of these things on you, which shrink your leader, and then just go to town against you while you're at 5k or you're at 6k. You're probably sitting at 1 or 0 life, and they just go at you, and you just have to counter out of everything. You got to counter out of like 6 swings, and it is tough. It is scary. While they're like a 10 Don, Bello Betty's leader ability gives 3 things plus 3k. Like it is wild. For those of you who don't know what Bello Betty does, it is crazy. It is so good, and it feels bad even attacking them because they build their board like with so many of their triggers for free. Yeah, that is a scary matchup. Luckily though, it's not the most tier deck. Bello Betty isn't the best into the other boogeyman of the format, so I think it's a matchup you can just hope to dodge. Matchups that you cannot hope to dodge, that you will likely face, are going to be the purple Luffy deck. It is kind of a scary matchup, honestly. They just have so many good cards that are just naturally good against you. Cards like Magellan, Polly gets rid of your 4-drop Marco. Some of them play King, also gets rid of your 4-drop Marco. Sorry, 4-drop Luffy, not Marco. It would get rid of Marco also, but Luffy in this case, they play so many blockers: the Queen blocker, the Kid blocker, the Law blocker. Oh my goodness, the Law blocker is actually, it is tough. It is, I want to say it's just impossible to play around, to be honest. It is so hard to play around this, and at some point, when you're drawing a card for turn and then taking your life for turn, you just cannot play around. You just have to accept if they have it, they have it, and you just gotta hope they don't. And if they do, well then shoot, it sucks. It's really bad when I've had it happen to me before, where I'm at 9 cards in hand and they play 2 of these things back to back against me. Get rid of 4 cards, put out 2 blockers, and there's just not much you can do about it. So Purple Luffy is definitely a matchup that is concerning. But that being said, it is still very winnable. You can very easily win against it if you see your good cards and they maybe don't see all of their good cards. Like if they don't see Magellan, if they don't see Magellan into Blocker Law or Blocker Law, all that good stuff, you can win. A lot of their hand isn't real, if that makes sense. It's not like they might have a big hand, but a lot of it might just be filled with no counters, is what I mean. So if you have something like, if you're going second and you go turn 1 Sanji, followed up with like maybe a 4-drop Luffy, or just play some searchers out, activate Sanji ability, swing for 7, maybe swing for 7 with leader, you're probably going to get them to just take those 2 hits. They're not going to counter out of 2 7s, there's no way. And then if you follow it up with like a Luffy, and you really want to see Ace in this matchup. Ace is an all-star against Purple Luffy, shrinking their things, making it like an even playing field almost, or because them being at 6k, like all their characters, like Queen, Kid, Magellan, it's so unfortunate because we're 6k leader. They can just attack us so freely, and we don't want to be pitching cards that early into the game. So Ace being able to shrink their things down, make it so unfavorable for them, to block, because it's so easy for them to just swing. It's so easy for us to just swing with leader, block with kid, pitch a 1K. And kind of the same thing with how I mentioned earlier with Borsellino and Sakazuki, minusing their blockers, swinging them, making them into chump blockers, or just making them take the damage or hard counter out of it. It really gives us some advantage in that point. And then being able to slam Whitebeard against them is really, really good. It's really powerful. We get a 10k on board while also giving us some defense and offense with our leader. It's super, super great. And then if you combo that with like an ace on the following turn after you play Whitebeard, you can shrink one of their blockers, put 2 Dawn on a Whitebeard, swing, pop the blocker. It's really, really nice. So it is possible to win. It's just, if they see everything, it's gonna be tough, but it is very, very winnable if you see your aces, your Whitebeards, and your events to survive their attacks. The next matchup that I really, really don't like, I was really scared of it before Nats. Afterwards, I did some more testing on it, more testing that I should have done before Nats, but it's not as scary in hindsight. Red Purple Luffy, it is very scary, the fact that they're a 6k leader just like us, and they play cards like Whitebeard and the extra turn Luffy. Those cards can definitely ruin our day. And the fact that they ramp, they apply so much pressure with those cards while also being defensive. It's a lot easier for them to counter out since they're at 6k also. That being said, just how I mentioned with Purple Luffy that a lot of their hand sometimes just isn't real, that's even more true with Red Purple Luffy. They run an absurd amount of no K cards, no counters, and they also run very little 2k counters. I know like one of the top lists from Nats had 4 2Ks on the list. 4 2Ks. That is like absurd to me. Being a Whitebeard player, I'm trying to run as many 2Ks as I can. But so we can definitely exploit that, you know, even if it's just like putting a Dawn on leader, 2k checking them. If they have it, cool, that's one less we have to worry about. If they don't, they might just take that life, you know. So you definitely want to go first against Red Purple Luffy to take them off of the turn 2 on curve Zoro Judo. That helps them ramp and start doing their shenanigans faster. You definitely want to take the play, go first. You take them off that play, and you get to be the aggressor. Again, if you go like turn 2 Sanji, it's super nice to just pound them for that, like hit them really hard, get them to get cards out of their hand, or just make them take the life. They're at 3 life leader. You know, you just gotta poke them. You just gotta poke them, get cards out, make them so that they have to use their radical beams on your 6k attacks, or use their jet gatlings on your 6k attacks. That's how you know you're getting to them. And then you just couple that with Luffy, Rush Luffy, or like Vanilla Luffy, things like that, just to keep poking them. You just want to poke them over and over again. And this was a matchup I talked about earlier, that if I had the Makino, I would have won. I lost to Red Purple Luffy in Nats, where they were at 1 life when I died. But when we looked at their hand and their last life, it was a no count. Like, they had no counters after that. So if I would have had a Makino, I would have been able to free up 2 less Dawn to attack with a 1-drop, and I could have used that on like a Rush Luffy, and they would have both connected pretty much. And knowing that they didn't have any counter in hand or in life, it would have been enough to win me the game. So that's why, again, I'm up on 3 Makinos. Because in that instance it would have mattered, you know. So those are the 3, I think, main decks that you really want to avoid. Bella Betty, Purple Luffy, and Red Purple Luffy. Those are the ones I think are the scariest. But like I said, they're still winnable. In this last Treasure Cup, I beat a Purple Luffy and a Red Purple Luffy. In Nats, I lost to a Purple Luffy and a Red Purple Luffy. So it is scary, but it also is still very winnable. And you just gotta know what to look out for, what to play around, and what cards give you the best chance at winning against those matchups. So now I want to get into the matchups that I played at Nats. We should have a vlog type of video coming out soon about my Nats experience. It's not the most I'm not super proud of the video. A lot of it has to do with my performance and just how Nats was run. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard how the North America Nats went, but that's literally for the next video. But that being said, again, I went 7-3 at Nats. When we finally started, I had 2-round bye, so I still had to wait the first 2 rounds to play. Round 3, I sit down and I play none other than Whitebeard. I play the mirror of all things. I think the guy also had a 2-round bye. It was a pretty close game. It ended up coming down to a 1k counter. If he had a 1k in hand, he would have won. So it was very close. He took life very aggressively. Like he took, I think it was turn 3 where I swang 6 with Whitebeard. He took it, and then I swung 6 with Luffy, and he took it also. And I was like, wow, okay, this guy's gonna go to 0 like quickly. And sure enough, he did. He had a lot of cards in hand, but once you get to 0, you have to start defending everything. So there was a few turns where I just smacked him for like 8 or 9, and he just had to counter out of the end. He had to have the counter, which he did, but you're just whittling down the resources and to when you inevitably go for game, and luckily I was able to put enough pressure to where he was 1k off, and luckily that was enough to get me the win. So that was round 3. Round 4 is when I played the purple Luffy player. He played the deck super well. He knew what he was doing, and he really just exploited how some of the cards do against me. Like I think he waited quite a bit to do the purple law blocker, but when he did, I was like at 7 cards. We was already like turn 5 or 6, I think, and it was brutal. I didn't really, I don't remember too much of the details about how I played, but I feel like I probably could have played it a little better. But he really just didn't make it easy on me. He whooped me pretty good, and just exploded everything bad I said about the matchup. He exploited all of it. It was really good on his part. Yeah, it was pretty rough. But next match, I played against my first Sakazuki, and it was pretty easy. I think I was able to again just put pressure. He did make a little blunder at the end. I think I had a Whitebeard out, and he was, Sakazuki has a lot of little decisions to make in the game, or in every turn. It's not an easy deck to play. So he was thinking a little bit, doing little things, and at one point he Ice Aged my Whitebeard. So I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna remove this or whatever. And he thought about it for like a minute or 2, and then ultimately decided, you know what, Dawn up on leader, swing 13 at lead. And I'm like, oh, so that was just like a mistake. And it didn't matter at the end. I would have been able to counter out of 14 if he had just done 14. But I countered out of the 13, and I ended up winning on the next turn. So that was a little mistake on his part. Not that it would have mattered, but just a little, I guess, miscalculation, or an early decision to Ice Age my leader, and then he probably decided, oh, you know what, I just can't do this, I gotta just go for game. Then the next round 6, I believe that's when I played another Sakazuki. I played another Sakazuki player, and we both mulliganed, I think, and I think he mulliganed into a pretty bad hand. My only real play on turn 2 was Vanilla Luffy. That was my only viable play, and the Luffy ended up staying, I think, like almost the entire game. It got like multiple swings in, which is huge. Just when you get characters to stick on the board against Sakazuki, that's always a huge plus. And he just didn't have a way to remove it. I don't think. I think I cut him into a really bad hand, unfortunately for him. And this Luffy got so much value, and yeah, I think he played it okay. I think he played it as well as he could have, but it seemed like he didn't have a good hand. So that's unfortunate for him. But round 7, I played against Red Purple Luffy. No, sorry, not yet. I played against Enel. Round 7, I played against Enel, and I believe my opponent ended up making day 2. I believe he top 64. I forgot his name, but he played the deck super well. He knew what he was doing. and obviously he was good enough to top 64. I think he went Holy against me. He went, I think, 3 Yamatos and a Katakuri against me. And when against Enel, you're kind of just trading like Whitebeard Yamatos pretty much. Like you're going back and forth, just kind of seeing who runs out of gas first before going in, punching in for the win, you know. And he just had more boss monsters than me. I think he triggered Shirahoshi or Shuda like 2 or 3 times. Was filtering his hand. He had like 10 cards, 11 cards in hand at some point. It was just, there was no end in sight for me. It was rough. It was brutal. But he played it super well. I think at one point he had Amaru for my Luffy. He tapped it down and just swung 8 at it with a Holy, and with like leader and Ohm. And so that was tough. I think that like just put me so far behind, and it enabled him to just do everything else in the game. So he got that one. I was X2 at this point. And then round 8, that's when I played the red purple Luffy, and my opponent won the die roll. He went first, played Zoro Judo on turn 2, and he just ramped crazy, played Whitebeard. I think he played another Whitebeard. It was just brutal. And even with all that, I was still a Makino away from coming away with the win. But he just mopped the floor with me. It was tough. Everything just went good for him. So, you know, he ended up taking that one. After that, I was 5-3, if I'm not mistaken. No. Yes, I was 5-3. And I ended up playing another Enel, and on that one he didn't have as many things as the first Enel had, and I was able to just play the aggressor and just get in for the win with, I want to say I had multiple Whitebeards. So I just remember it felt pretty easy. And then after that I played, so at this point that was round 9. And then round 10, which ended up being the last round of Nats, I played a Katakuri player. Katakuri has always been a pretty favorable match for Whitebeard, much more favorable than Enel. And yeah, it was just, it didn't feel particularly close. It was pretty simple. Just play, be the aggressor, take life. You don't want to counter out of life too easily, make their big moms not as good. And yeah, it just didn't feel too much of a challenge. And I was expecting at least one more round to try and secure that 128 spot, top 128. But unfortunately, they did cut the event short at 10 rounds, and I ended up getting, I believe, 242nd place with a 7-3 record. Pretty unfortunate. Would have loved to do much better. Would have loved a chance to day 2, but that's as far as I was able to get. I still really liked the deck, and the following week I had this treasure cup that at the time of recording was this same weekend. And again, that's when I made the change to go up a Makino, down an Otama, but just pretty much run the same deck back. In the treasure cup, round 1 I played Enel, and just didn't feel too much of a challenge. I think I played the matchup well. I got the game. Game 2, I played another Enel, and I could not find any events in game 2 against Enel. I played a Nami Searcher, went probably close through half of my deck, couldn't find a single event, and at the end I ended up losing by 1 Radical Beam. I bluffed having 2 Radical Beams when I passed turn, and he decided to just go for it. I think he realized he had to go for it, and I didn't have any events in hand, so I ended up losing by 1 Radical Beam. That was 1-1. Round 3, I played another Enel. This time I did have my Radical Beams. I was able to just go through the onslaught again, and I was able to come out with the win. And Enel matchups go the same, early to mid game is just, I try to clean up their board as much as I can, their Ohm Holies, their Gadatsus, whatever. And then in the late game, you just want to slam Whitebeard, and aces to just put pressure and try to just get little edges where you can before you finally go for game. So that was round 3. Round 4, I played against Red Purple Luffy, and I don't think my opponent had the most counters in hand. I know there was a turn where I sensed weakness, and I was able to punch in, I think, just some flat 6 attacks to Red Purple Luffy, and I got him down really low on life, and he wasn't ever able to play a Newgate or or extra turn purple Luffy. So that was really good. Round 5, I think that's when I played another NL. I played a lot of NLs in Treasure Cup. It was crazy. I played another NL, and this was the opposite problem of my first loss. I had too many events. I saw all 4 rad beams and a guard point, and I had to play a Whitebeard to just kind of stay alive. Otherwise I was going to go to 0 life. And maybe I should have in hindsight. I'm not really sure. I think I played the match kind of poorly. But like, long story short, I ended up playing Whitebeard, passed, and I had 4 rad beams in hand with 1 Dawn open, and it ended up killing me. I was a few K off from surviving. And yeah, if like 1 or 2 of these had just been 1Ks, I think I might have been able to survive, but unfortunately lost that one. So I was 3-2 on the day. Proceeded to win out, luckily though. The next round, I believe I played purple Luffy. Ugh, my memory is kind of joggy. I apologize. I believe I played a purple Luffy. This was round 6. Yes, I believe I played purple Luffy. Yeah, I remember because my friend Leo played purple Luffy as well, and I remember I applied good pressure. I was really aggressive, and I got them to a point where they were. I think his biggest mistake was that he Dawn minused a lot early. I think he went turn 2 Dawn minus ulti page 1, turn 2 Dawn minus like Magellan, and so he wasn't ever really able to get, like, he wasn't able to ramp super well. So like I was able to play a Luffy on turn 2, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to get to 7 Dawn to the poly it. So the Luffy got to get some value, and I put him in a position where I got him to 0 life on the turn that he was going to 8 Dawn. So he couldn't, since he's at 0 life, he wasn't able to use leader ability to ramp to get to 9 to play Kaido. So I put him to 0, and I played a Rush Luffy, said pass. So I had the Rush Luffy unrested active, so it wasn't able to be attacked, and he was at 0 life. And so next turn, it didn't matter how many blockers he played or anything. I was just going to go 16 with Rush Luffy unblockable, and it should be enough to kill him. And that's exactly what happened. He also did have 4 of the polys stuck in his hand, all 4 polys, which just weren't doing anything. They were just no counter, they were bricks. So unfortunate for him, good for me. Round 7 is when I played another NL, actually, I think. And it just went pretty well. I ended up playing 5 NLs total, I believe. No. Yes, I played 5 NLs. Yeah, I played 5 NLs, and then followed up by that purple Luffy, and then this was the last NL of the day. And I don't quite remember the details of this match. I just remember that I won. I'll be honest, I don't really remember. It's a little joggy. I was getting fatigued at this point. The long tournament. But I did come away with the win. On to round 8, I play a Sakizuki player, and in the nicest way possible, this guy was very new. He asked me what my Whitebeard leader did, so he was pretty inexperienced, and so I guess he wasn't expecting things like Sanji on 6 Dawn, and just little things like Ace. He asked me what Ace did. I was pretty surprised to see him in the X2 bracket on round 8, I won't lie, but he was playing the best thing in the format, which just can carry you. That just goes to show how powerful Sakizuki is. It can carry you a long ways, but I was able to clean up pretty easily. I think the fact that he was a little inexperienced helped out a lot, and the fact that I had been practicing the matchup quite a bit helped a lot, so I was able to get that. So X and 2 going into the last round, and I play one more Sakizuki. My opponent was pretty experienced. He seemed like he knew what he was doing. It was definitely it was a lot closer, but I was able to go Whitebeard, and just really depleted a lot of the cards in his hand. He made like a last ditch effort play to like go like Rebecca, get a 2k back, but I was able to just play Robin, pop the Rebecca, go for game, and there was just nothing he could do. So ended up going 7-2 in the Treasure Cup. Like I had shown before, good enough for 39th place, and that Kobe So I was happy with that. I really wanted to try to get top 16. I really want that Garb promo. I love that scene in the anime with Garb, so I really want that card. But maybe next time. I do have a treasure cup coming up soon, later this month, so hopefully we do well there. But my minimum goal, at the minimum, I wanted to get top 64 to get that Kobe, and I did do that. The deck felt great. Took down 5 NLs, 2 Sakazukis, Purple Luffy, and Red Purple Luffy. I didn't take down 5 NLs. I went up against 5 NLs. I took down 3 of them, and then I took down 2 Sakazukis, Red Purple Luffy, and Purple Luffy. So, yeah, I have a lot of confidence in this deck after that. I think it's great. I think it's definitely sleeper. Some people don't expect it. You know, they don't know sometimes how to play against it, or some of these little tech decisions like the Sanji, Robin, or like Makino. Like, you'd be surprised, and people can get caught off guard by that. So again, really high on this list. I think I'm happy with the way it performed at Nats and at the Treasure Cup, and I would run it back again, honestly, for another Treasure Cup. I would definitely run it back. So that just about wraps it up for today's video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I know I rambled on quite a bit, but hopefully you learned something from today's video. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my partner in crime, Ryan, the guy who runs the channel with me, part of the fleet, for helping me test and put this list together. You know, a lot of this list was, you know, my inspiration, but he gave me a bunch of feedback, gave me a lot of pointers, things to think about, and just sat down and played with me. You know, just at the end of the day, he sat down and played with me and helped me realize, okay, this card's just not that good, or maybe this card you should consider playing this card. So I owe a lot of my success to him. I wouldn't be playing this game if it wasn't for him. Just want to show Ryan some love. Love you, Ryan. Appreciate you, everything you do for me and for the community. And again, I owe all my success to him, honestly, for keeping my interest in this game and for just making me a better player every day, every week. So thank you, Ryan, and a huge thanks to the whole RGV, the whole Rio Grande Valley, the whole Rio Grande fleet. Again, you guys give me no easy wins. You guys make all the games hard, and I learn from it. I become a better player because of all of you guys, and I really hope this next season, season 2, is good to all of us. I hope we all get to eat. I hope we all get to qualify for next Nats, and I hope more of us get to go this time. I know only a few of us got to go this time around. I really want to see everyone there next year. I'm so excited for it, and you know, hopefully Whitebeard's still kicking this time next year, but we'll see. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Any comments, questions, concerns, please leave them in the comments below. We read everything, anything and everything you guys want to say, suggestions, requests. You know, we're open to everything, guys. So please do let your voices be known. And yeah, that's gonna wrap it up today. Thank you so much, and have a Rio Grande day.